Investigators are trying to find out what led the suspected gunman to ambush and shoot 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. last week. One of the victims, Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, died over the Thanksgiving holiday. The other, Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, is still in the hospital. The suspect has been identified as Raminallah Lakhanwal. He's an Afghan national who was granted asylum in the U.S. earlier this year. But DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says he may have been radicalized after entering the U.S. in 2021.
We believe he could have been radicalized in his home community and in his home state. So as we continue to talk to his family and his contacts, more details will be revealed, and we'll release those when it's appropriate.
All right, let's bring in CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Sganga. So, Nicole, you've been on this story since it broke. Update us on the investigation.
Investigators are now running this bi-coastal investigation, and they're peeling back the final months of Raminallah Lakhanwal's life prior to attacking these 2 National Guard soldiers in D.C. What really is looking to be sort of the culmination of unraveling of mental health, isolation, possible paranoia, more than a clear ideological pathway. NCTC has been combing through foreign chat rooms, while the FBI has sent the devices for a full forensic scrub that it took from the alleged gunman's home. And analysts are continue to examine his digital history for any signs of terrorist-aligned messaging that specifically targets U.S. partner forces, often leaning on themes of abandonment or deportation. But this is important, Vlad. So far, investigators have found no clear evidence linking the suspect to foreign handlers, extremist networks, or directed terrorism, though that remains a very open line of inquiry. The suspect traveled roughly 2,800 miles from northwest Washington state to northwest Washington, D.C. with a single revolver loaded with 4 rounds. The gun was registered to a man in Washington state who had died in 2023.
Wow. All right. So I guess this is probably a flag from his caseworker about mental health that could have impacted his case, his asylum case. What do you know about that, Nicole?
Yeah, newly obtained emails sent in January of 2024 describe the suspect as having manic depressive episodes, week-long disappearances from his family, and deep withdrawal into his darkened bedroom. The 29-year-old former CIA-partnered commando, he had applied for asylum in December of 2024, and he was approved roughly 4 months later under the Trump administration this past April, despite some of these warning signs that surfaced nearly a year prior from Washington state caseworkers. Now, those warning signs, Vlad, now sit at the center of this investigation. They sort of beg the question, did anyone on the inside of the U.S. immigration system know? Did the January 2024 mental health warnings ever reach USCIS adjudicators before this asylum was granted? Now, we should point out to our viewers that asylum is granted to individuals with credible fears of persecution that are tied to race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. So mental health conditions don't make someone ineligible for asylum status as long as they meet the legal burden. And we know that Lakhanwal's application was greenlit in part of his fear of persecution by the Taliban. Also, psychiatric trauma is really common among asylum seekers, especially veterans of U.S.-backed units like Lakhanwal's. But this kind of concern from a caseworker should have triggered additional review, support, intervention, and possibly monitoring. Vlad?
Yeah, important distinctions there. Nicole Sganga with that reporting, crucial reporting as always. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's get to CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez to talk more about this. So the White House, as you know, Camilo, blames Joe Biden's policies for letting Lakhanwal into the country. But just remind us, the Trump administration is the one who actually granted him asylum, right? So what does that indicate about this particular case?
Well, look, Vlad, this attack can be politicized in multiple directions depending on your political affiliation. But what we know is that the facts and circumstances of the suspect's immigration files and history underscore that there were several opportunities for U.S. officials under Democratic and Republican administrations to screen and vet this man and potentially identify any derogatory information or red flags. We know that he entered the country back in September of 2021 under the Biden administration alongside tens of thousands of other Afghan evacuees airlifted from that country following the Taliban takeover and the American military withdrawal from that country after the 20-year conflict there. We also know that he was granted something known as humanitarian parole, also under the Biden administration, that allowed this man and his family to live and work in the country legally for some time. He applied for asylum in the last weeks of the outgoing Biden administration in December of 2024. But his asylum case was granted in April of this year, as Nicole underscored, under the second Trump administration. That was another opportunity for this administration to screen and vet his case. So clearly, there were many chances for U.S. officials to identify any concerning information about this man. So it could be the case that those red flags were missed or not detected, but it could also be the case that he passed his background checks, his security screenings, and then after the fact, subsequently became disturbed or radicalized, as it appears to be the case according to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Because again, Vlad, as we discussed back on Friday, vetting is not a crystal ball that can predict the future.
So, as you know, the White House is now pausing all asylum applications and re-examining green card cases from 19 countries. I want to play a little bit of what the president had to say about that.
We don't want those people. Does that make sense? You know why we don't want them? Because many have been no good, and they shouldn't be in our country.
What do you mean by those people? Can you
The
clarify?
people from different countries that are not friendly to us and countries that are out of control themselves.
So which are the countries that are going to be impacted by this? And what does it mean for people who are in the process right now of those applications?
Yes. The Trump administration, Vlad, has cited this attack to further expand aggressively, I should add, its immigration crackdown. It initially suspended all processing of immigration applications, from green card requests to applications for U.S. citizenship filed by Afghan nationals. The State Department has now also suspended any visa issuance to any Afghan passport holder. Also, the Department of Homeland Security has issued a halt to any asylum decisions, not just filed by Afghan asylum seekers, but anyone from any country around the world, a step that DHS says is designed to mitigate any potential future attacks. And then lastly, as you alluded to, the Department of Homeland Security has ordered a review, a full-scale re-examination, as they're calling it, of green card cases by nationals and of nationals from 19 countries in Africa, Asia, and the Western Hemisphere, including Afghanistan, but also some countries in Africa like Somalia and Sudan, and several countries in the Western Hemisphere too, including Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela. Those are the 19 countries that are listed in the president's so-called travel ban that restricted immigration and travel from those countries. So we're seeing a tightening of the U.S. immigration system that the administration, Vlad, believes is justified given the attack.
All right, Camilo Montoya-Galvez reporting for us this morning. Thank you, Camilo.